This administration has no desire to end the immigration. They want it for two things: power, and change the censuses of the states that transport them all over this country. It's an abomination, and the support by a meaningful new president who will stop the border and will close it down.
I kind of feel like I'm in an episode of the Twilight Zone. I can't figure these guys out. Bottom line is that I hear they want to be tough on the border, and every time we try to be tough on border security, pass a tough border security bill, they say no. And what we have here is a non-binding resolution that does nothing, doesn't even go to the Senate, can never become law. It is nothing. It is just a press release. And what they turned down was $440 million for more judges to accelerate the asylum claim. So we're not waiting years. We can do this in weeks and months. $23 million to destruct Mexican cartels. They said no to that. $6.7 billion for customs and border protection. Said no to that. 50,000 ICE detention beds. They said no to that. $4 billion for USCIS. Said no to that. And why? Because the former President of the United States called up and said, I want the issue. The former President of the United States, by the way, who says that immigrants poison the blood of our country. The former President of the United States, and I'd like to insert this article in the record, Mr. Speaker, ask unanimous consent. This is from Salon, and quote, the title is, "He Said Hitler Did Some Good Things." Ex-Chief of Staff says Trump praised Hitler in White House. Let that sink in. I reserve my time.
Mr. Speaker, the first step in solving a problem is to acknowledge that it exists. The other side of the aisle is having a problem with that because that's what this resolution does. It describes the problem. The second part of solving a problem is to look at what the source of the problem is. That's what this resolution does. The other side of the aisle is having a problem with that. In fact, today they opened the debate by simply complaining that this is a House resolution and not a House bill. But this is a House resolution full of facts, inconvenient facts to this administration. This administration, since the beginning, has passed 94 executive orders that have repealing border security measures that were in place. And that's attracted 9.3 million illegal immigrants to our borders. This is a problem that exists. The other side of the aisle needs to quit denying that it exists.
Every day, we see a new horror story in the news, a new headline about some violent crime committed by an illegal alien. 22-year-old nursing student Laken Riley, brutally murdered by a Venezuelan illegal immigrant. Travis Wolf, one day away from celebrating his 12th birthday, killed by an illegal immigrant driving the wrong way. 16-year-old Texas teen Elizabeth Medina, stabbed to death by an illegal immigrant from Mexico with a criminal background. Laken Riley, Travis Wolf, and Elizabeth Medina would still be here today. Every crime committed by an illegal alien is preventable. Every murder, every rape, every robbery is preventable. Criminal violence is the current outcome that we are seeing every day due to Biden's open border policies.
Mr. Speaker, let me just say to the gentleman from Kentucky, yeah, we've acknowledged the problem. And maybe the gentleman wasn't listening to my eloquent oratory here, but I acknowledged and identified the problem at least 13 times in my speech. I think what I have a problem with, and people on our side of the aisle have a problem with, is that you've been acknowledging the problem, like we did 3 months ago with a non-binding resolution, a lot of times. And I think we don't think non-binding resolutions and acknowledging the problem or expressing our feelings is enough, that we have to actually do something. And to the other gentleman who just spoke, we are horrified by the crimes that have been committed by undocumented immigrants who have come to this country, who have criminal records. And we pray for their families, and we want to do everything we can to make sure that these things never happen again. But I have a hard time when we gather and we hear this from my colleagues, when we have shootings that are happening in this country almost on a daily basis. I want to ask unanimous consent to insert the names: 19 children, 2 teachers killed in Uvalde. I want to ask unanimous consent to insert the names that were released by the coroner of the names of all 58 Las Vegas shooting victims. I go on and on and on. We could do something about that.
Objection to order.
We could do something about that, but the NRA provides lots of money, so my friends don't want to deal with it. I mean, come on.
I'd like to yield 3 minutes to my good friend from Texas and fellow member on the Rules Committee, Mr. Roy.
I thank the gentleman from Kentucky, my good friend, and I know he's probably as surprised as I am to be accused of taking orders from the former president and that following whatever the former president says. And, I think, if the gentleman from Massachusetts wants to take a flight down to Mar-a-Lago, he's welcome to tell the former president that the gentleman from Texas, the gentleman from Kentucky take orders. The reason that matters is that I had the president's former ICE director, Tom Homan, under oath in the House Judiciary Committee, and I asked him that question. And I said, were we articulating the massive problems in the Senate bill prior to the former president having commented publicly? And the answer under oath, of course, from Mr. Homan was yes, because we all knew that the bill was a failed bill. We all knew that it was a prop. And the gentleman from Massachusetts makes crystal clear what the actual game is. The gentleman from Massachusetts gives up the game today because he comes to the floor of the House and he says, quote, "Republicans own this now." And that is an important phrase. Republicans own this now. What's really happening is my radical progressive Democrat colleagues who believe in wide open borders allowing mass release of immigrants into the United States that have resulted in the death of thousands of Americans through fentanyl or through the danger of what we saw happen to Laken Riley. Those radical progressive Democrats are realizing the American people are caught up to them.
A couple of things, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent to insert into the record an article from Axios entitled "Trump House Republicans Plot to Kill Border Deal."
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I would just say to the gentleman who was just yelling that we're not, the proposal that we're talking about, the bipartisan border security deal, is not something that we wrote over here. It was written in a bipartisan way in the Senate, led by the second most conservative Republican in the United States Senate. He said it doesn't have a chance of passing. I'll bet him anything that if you brought the bill to the floor and if you actually let it be brought before the full House, that it would pass. That's why Trump intervened to make sure that it never got a chance to go to the floor, because he knows it would pass. And to the gentleman from Kentucky, no one over here, I certainly didn't call the victims of...
Members are reminded
Yeah, I did not refer to the victims of violence and who were killed by undocumented immigrants as props. I said my Republican friends are using them as props. And I inserted into the record the names of people who were killed by gun violence because I'm tired of the selective outrage. I mean, the bottom line is, countless people in this country are killed every week in gun violence, and my Republican friends do not want to do anything about it because the NRA owns the Republican Party in this country, and they're afraid to lose the money. That's what this is about. And so, look, our complaint here is that we are talking about border security issues, and our frustration is that what we're dealing with, this tough bill, my Republicans are so tough on the border, the tough bill that they're bringing before the House of Representatives is a non-binding resolution that can never become law, that won't even be sent to the Senate, that is just a press release. I think that's just a colossal waste of time. Surely there has to be common ground where Democrats and Republicans can come together and actually pass things to better secure our border and to protect people like Laken Riley and others in the future. But I guess that's too much to ask. I reserve my time.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to share my support for H.R. 1071, Utilizing Space Efficiently and Improving Technologies Act of 2023, otherwise known as the Use It Act. Mr. Speaker, it's time for federal employees to get back into the office, use it or lose it. In the USDA, 2 million square feet, beautiful buildings just down the street here. Only 11% of those buildings are occupied. Are these agencies trying to hide to lower the numbers of workers actually showing up for working for the American people? The majority workers aren't at their desk. They are not answering the phones. That's why our congressional offices are having to do their job. As a former news anchor for 35 years in America, I have breaking news for you. COVID is over. Get back to work for the American people. Start doing your job. Quit putting the pressure on constituents to have to call their congressman or congresswoman to get the job done that they should be doing in the first place. And with that, I yield back.
Not all jobs are the same. I mean, food inspectors, federal food inspectors, for example, don't sit at a desk 5 days a week. Sometimes they have to go out and do inspections to make sure that the food that we provide people is safe. Federal firefighters are not behind a desk 5 days a week. Doesn't mean they're not working. Our Border Patrol agents are patrolling the border. That doesn't mean they don't need a desk at some point. Heck, members of Congress. I mean, we're not in Washington behind our desk 5 days a week. I mean, sometimes we're in our district, sometimes we're in other places. But because we don't show up physically to work, a day or 2 or 5 days in a particular month, that somehow we should have our desks taken away? I mean, this is the problem, right? With some better bipartisan cooperation, with more thoughtful consideration of these matters, we could have had a bill that would have sailed out of here unanimously. But again, my friends can't help themselves. It's either their way or the highway, and in any event, the way the bill is currently written ignores the realities of the workers that I just mentioned. I reserve my time.